It's good to be here. Hi, Tim.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. I'm very excited for our session. I believe you have a little something prepared for us to get started with.
I
Is that
do.
correct?
I do indeed. So let's grab this. This is a little way of getting us go. Can you see Mr. Al Roker?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks. And I want to thank everyone at Brand Innovators for the opportunity to discuss creativity and transformation today. I figured we should start with everybody's favorite, the Today Show's Al Roker, the guy who helps celebrate the centuries, and take a quick look at how Land O'Lakes leveraged its once in a lifetime event. Just quick background on me. I'm a writer by trade, but I also think that data helps us tell stories. So here's some data about me. I've been working in advertising and marketing for 26 years. I've lived in 6 cities. I've worked at 11 different agencies on about 100 brands. I've also taught at 4 different universities over the past 18 years, and I've been brand side at Land O'Lakes for the last 3 years. Also, by the way, I like books. So a little bit of background about Land O'Lakes. Everyone knows us as a CPG brand. We make delicious butter and cheese. I had some delicious butter this morning, and we've been doing that for about 100 years. Our newest campaign encourages you to eat it like you own it, because over 1,000 American farm families actually do own Land O'Lakes. We are a farmer-owned cooperative, and we're organized into 4 business units. There's our legacy dairy foods business that feeds people, through retail and food service. We also feed and nourish the land through Winfield United. We impact millions of acres through agronomy, ag retail, and e-commerce. We nourish and nurture animals through Purina Animal Nutrition, from livestock and dairy cows to backyard chicken flocks to literally every zoo animal in America. And we're also evolving the future of agriculture through Truterra. This is our new sustainability brand built upon technology and relationships with farmers. So quite a bit to celebrate as we were turning 100. However, there's a problem, and the problem is no one cares. No one cares if you're turning 100, in part because it's not really that innovative, nor is it fresh. And consumers are right to ask, like, what's in your anniversary for me? And yet, as marketers, it's a conundrum. We're supposed to do something special, right? We're supposed to celebrate. So I got 6 quick lessons for you that speak to how we used creativity to help transform Land O'Lakes and celebrate 100 years. So the first thought is that you need to narrow your appeal. As it turns out, turning 100, as I said, isn't for everyone. So we focus on our audiences who would care. 2 of our brands, Winfield and Truterra, are relatively young. Purina actually turned 125 over a year ago. So we focused our 100th anniversary efforts on our dairy members, our employees, and the cooperative system in general. These are audiences who will care because to them, longevity conveys resilience. Second lesson, leverage your DNA. As a longtime brand builder, I'm an advocate for looking back and asking, well, what's in our brand's DNA that still resonates today? I also have the good fortune of being in charge of the Land O'Lakes corporate archives. So I can tell you, looking through our archives, that what inspired the founding of our cooperative back in 1921 was the potential of dairy farmers collaborating. That concept of potential still resonates today. If you're a farmer, potential is everything. Lesson 3, start early. We began our 100th anniversary planning in our 98th year, which was 2019. We had a small team representing marketing, facilities, operations, and leadership. I can't stress the value of starting way early and cross-functional collaboration enough. We sketched out what seemed like a brilliant 2-year-long campaign. We were going to use our 99th year to go back in time. This is the photo you're looking at is from our 2020 member meeting. To celebrate the innovation and courage that got us all the way to age 99. But then COVID hit. And so that points us to lesson 5, lesson 4, which is you got to be prepared to pivot. We had 100th anniversary events planned, and then they canceled. I mean, everyone did, right? So the pandemic changed all of that. Our key audiences, especially employees, were now keenly focused on supply chain issues, not celebrations. So we pivoted. One quick thing we did was a local newspaper campaign in about 15 markets to recognize and thank the first names of the employees who were keeping our plants and operations running during our 99th year. We used newspaper because rural communities still resonate with this medium. And yeah, we had some digital components, but we wanted to celebrate the potential of our essential workers. Lesson 5, find partners. It's one thing if the brand communicates its history, quite another if an outside entity does the work and conveys some gravitas. So we were fortunate to partner with the Ramsey County Historical Society. Our headquarters is in Minnesota's Ramsey County. That organization hired a research writer, dug through our archives and other sources, and helped us clarify and illuminate our history. And now we've got a printed piece to share with members and anyone else who's interested. And last but not least, I think a key point is to demonstrate courage. There's going to be a lot of pressure on an anniversary, a lot of expectation. So you have to be courageous. I mean, it's what got you to 100 years anyway. So you're looking at a life-size bronze sculpture. It's titled Rooted in Tomorrow. It now stands outside the main entrance of our headquarters in Arden Hills, Minnesota. We unveiled the sculpture on August 4th, close to the date when 320 farmers met in 1921 and agreed to form a cooperative. What's fun about the statue is that there's a daycare center on our campus. So employees can bring in their kids to the daycare, and the kids love to come out and talk to the little bronze girl. They bring her gifts. They want to put hats on her and things like that. So that's cute. So this sculpture took 10 months to create, from pencil sketches to installation, but it could stand there for thousands of years. That's a good symbol, I think, of farming's potential. So 6 lessons in celebrating 100th anniversary. But there's an extra 7th point. If you can wrangle a Big Ten University marching band to show up and play at your sculpture unveiling, I highly encourage you to do that. That's what we got. I want to say thanks to Brand Innovators. Thanks for this opportunity. Christine, what questions do you have? How can I help answer you?
I am excited to drill down a little bit deeper into some of the lessons that you just had. And I'm going to start with a lofty one. So as today's topic is creative transformation, what does that mean to you as it relates to your role and the work that you do at OLakes?
Yeah, so it means understanding our audiences first and foremost. Who and whose behavior are we attempting to affect? Then you need courageous attitudes and courageous ideas. All marketing is about affecting change. I think that takes the courage to be courageous.
I have a follow-up question there. So courage is one thing, but it also takes courage to buy big creative ideas. And being on the brand side, how do you make sure that the people that need to have that buy-in on an idea understand what the potential of a creative idea is? Like, what are your tips, like selling courageous ideas into organizations internally, or maybe even for some agency folks who are watching this for their clients?
Yeah, it's all about relationships. I mean, I think it's about understanding the why behind your colleagues' goals and agendas. I mean, if you can speak with knowledge to their view of the world, their aspirations, I think you're going to have a much stronger position to influence and sell in bold work.
Yeah, and I think with the campaign and the anniversary that you just showed, it's brand work, and it's something that you're not going to see that work impacted immediately in sales. People are not going to go out and buy more butter because of it. And so sometimes, especially for us marketers, where we are always as an industry, we're always chasing the revenue, chasing the results, chasing the KPIs. I could imagine that it took a couple conversations to have. I'm sure everybody understood the value of doing all these beautiful acts and pieces for the anniversary, but understanding the value that now we're building the brand, we're strengthening the relationships with our key audiences, and this isn't about instant results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're asking essentially about sort of short-term versus long-term kind of tactics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering how those conversations went when you like
Right.
for a brand campaign like this, how do you set KPIs?
Right. Okay. So how do you balance short-term, long-term? I think
Yeah.
a lot of modern marketers are very, very steeped and focused today in how do we get quick turns, how do we get quick results. So the balance, I guess, in my mind, first comes from focusing on an audience mindset, like I mentioned earlier, as well as understanding, like, we have a brand style guide, right? So if we're all on the same page strategically, we understand what the goals are, and we're all on the same page visually and verbally, we can establish short-term tactics will accumulate, and add long-term value. But then when you look at something like a 100th anniversary, that's a long wave effort. So, you have short wave efforts that are about, hey, how do we get a fast, quick return? And then you have longer wave efforts. And so it's about blending those two. I think no one's going to look at a 100th anniversary and say, hey, how is that effort going to immediately convert into sales in a specific category or specific product? I think the 100th anniversary is something that again, you're only going to do it once. And so how do you set it up in a way that benefits the brand for maybe a few more years to come? Hopefully things like a statue and some of the insights that we gained around our founding give us permission and give us kind of a foundation that we can use as we move into our 101st year, our 102nd year.
Yeah, I guess it's all about maybe us as marketers also learning a little bit of patience, and then also educating the people who make the decisions or who are more on the finance side, also to understand that with long wave brand efforts, typically you start seeing the returns on that or the impact on your brand only in, say, year 2 of running a certain campaign or running a certain brand initiative. So really having the balance of the two. Another thing that I really enjoyed in this presentation is the idea of leveraging your brand's DNA. I find it fascinating that you went in and you dug into the history and the heritage of OLakes. And I was wondering what that process was in practice. Like, what did you research? What departments were involved? Who did you talk to? Talk me through that.
Right. So, I mean, it starts with having rock solid brand strategy. And I think the team that we've got at OLakes just is amazing, right? So the process starts with the brand strategy team. They set the stage, so to speak, and then people like myself, we bring in our expertise. So we have an in-house design team, and we have like event production, so the unveiling and things like that, and we all collaborate. It goes without saying, you have to involve your legal team and help them understand, hey, here's where we're trying to go. And in the case of installing something like a statue, you have to get your operations team because, hey, we're going to rip up the pavement and things like that. So in a way, it's start early, get everybody involved, but start with brand strategy. That's the team that's going to set the stage and kind of empower everybody else to go and do their work.
And for the strategy, I would imagine as a 100-year-old company, you have a lot of material to go through. Like, were there things that surprised you when you were digging into the history of the company, like some quirky facts or stories that really kind of gave you that aha moment of, okay, this is what our brand is all about?
Yeah. Well, okay. So think of it. It's like late 1800s, 1900, like, was electricity everywhere? Obviously, they didn't have the internet, right? And so there's a book called Men to Remember that we published, OLakes published in 1947 on our 25th anniversary. Oh, it's a scintillating book. You can find it on eBay. So that book was great to just take us back into the flavor of the day. And you meet some of the characters and you realize that, like, cooperatives, the idea of a cooperative business as a business structure was very new in the early 1900s and was kind of perceived as a threat. There were organizations that felt like, hey, if all those farmers get together and organize, that's going to be a threat to us, especially to the wholesalers on the coasts, right? Because it was to their advantage that all of the dairy farmers in the Midwest were independent and were not united, because then you could pit them against each other and you could set the price. So the idea of a cooperative movement that we're gonna work together, right, was an interesting idea. And so there were a couple of individuals. There was a guy at the University of Minnesota, Professor Haker. He had an acolyte, a young student. This guy speaking of surprise, got on his bicycle, went from Minneapolis basically up to Duluth, then all the way down to the Iowa border over the course of like a summer and a half, like a year and a half, riding his bike, going and meeting with farmers and saying like, hey, in exchange for a meal and a place to sleep, I'll work for you for a day. And in the course of that, he'd talk to them about the vision of what if your dairy farm was in collaboration with other dairy farms? What benefits might you get together? So there was a lot of one-on-one farm by farm by farm kind of marketing to get farmers on board with the idea of forming a cooperative. So I found that fascinating. This idea, this guy's on a bicycle riding all over, to get people involved in the idea of forming a cooperative.
What I really like about that story too is that if you think about Land O'Lakes, you really think about a heritage brand, but at the core of that heritage brand, there really is this very disruptive idea for their times. Like they came in and they, they brought in a completely new way of working and organizing your business. So that's really interesting. And so not all brands have this 100-year heritage to go into and dig into, but I think it really benefits any brand to truly understand their heritage, even if it means the heritage from the past 5 years, 10 years, whatever the time that they've existed. What are your tips for other brands that are looking to create work that really leans into the truth of the brand?
Yeah, so that really gets into like, Simon Sinek talks about find your why, your core purpose. And even if you're a startup, you started, 18 months ago, there was a motivation, there was a dream that instigated, what was the instigation that said, I'm going to go start this company? I worked on the Volkswagen brand, and we were fortunate to be able to kind of look at Ferdinand Porsche, the guy that started, that created the new Beetle. What was his mindset? He was looking around at his time, and automobiles, like the only people who had automobiles were the extremely wealthy. And he had this idea of a car for the people, right? So and he's an engineer, right? So that's an interesting place to kind of think about, like, okay, that it kind of helps you understand why this brand exists. And I think that I talk about potential. I look at a group of independent farmers sort of who were in competition with each other, even though they're neighbors, getting this idea that like, hey, there's more for us if we work together. What does that potential speak to? I think exploring those things and talking about those things within your strategy teams, within your brand teams, your design teams, I think it's a really valuable exercise.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And once you found that insight for the 100-year anniversary, do you find that type of thinking and that message also then trickle through over to the consumer side, or did you keep those separate?
Well, like I said, I think the 100th anniversary is a sort of an evergreen topic. It allows the Inc., the corporate side, to refer to it. It gives us sort of a foundation. On the dairy food side, and speaking specifically to like our member relations teams and things like that, yeah, I think there's value. I think there's overlap in there. We did have some messaging on our butter packaging that spoke to, hey, we've been farmer owned for over 100 years. So yeah, there's overlap here and there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And do you also think that in your consumers' eyes, and I'm sure you have tons of consumer research on how they perceive the brand, there are also like those kind of like same themes pop up in how consumers think of Land O'Lakes as what was the heritage and the insights driving from that?
Well, if consumers are thinking about, like, again, you go to the store, you're buying butter,
Mm-hmm.
if heritage matters, hopefully it's a positive sentiment, right? I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of my my dairy friend marketers. They've got different opinions,
Mm-hmm. Sure. Then
they have their own opinions.
yeah. So we've been looking in the past and looking in the heritage. Let's look forward now. And so marketers are all about chasing the next shiny thing. Everybody is popping up with ETFs. I'm sure that if there isn't going to be a Super Bowl commercial that launches NFTs, if there isn't a Super Bowl commercial that launches an NFT for a brand, like that's what I'm betting on, that's going to happen happen next week. But so for you, what new technology or channel or approach are you really interested in trying next, or learning more about and seeing how that could turn into marketing?
Yeah, so I think that curiosity is a key role for any marketer. I mean, to be intentionally curious, to experiment, to learn. I mean, we have platforms like TikTok, fascinating. Like what a wonderful environment, to explore and to understand just on a personal level, but also as a marketer. I admit I'm trying to learn as much as I can about, things like Web3 and NFTs and crypto as they might apply to marketing. And so I'm sort of giving myself assignments to read and understand. It's early days, right? So trying to understand kind of the infrastructure of how does all this work, technically, philosophically, and then, gosh, how might it be applied to the work that we do in our day-to-day? So I'm just trying to be intentional and set time to research and understand. I don't have any answers right now because I'm still learning.
So maybe in 6 months, we'll be able to buy an NFT of Land O'Lakes butter. There's something kind of fun about that.
I'm sure we have people thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the flip side of that coin, is there something that a lot of marketers are hopping onto right now that you just find overrated?
I mean, aside from everything, I mean, it's overwhelming.
Everything's overrated.
We are so fortunate.
Brunelle.
If you think about it, we are so fortunate to live in the times that we're in, with the abundance of new technologies and new opportunities, new avenues to explore. I totally resonate with the idea of being overwhelmed. So I don't know what to say, what's overrated, because there's just so many things to explore and to be curious about.
Yeah, I think for me, it's not necessarily just one thing, but what we say, and it's a cycle, right? When social media marketing first popped up,
right,
there were great ideas executed on social, but a lot of the time, like, it was about the shiny new thing, and the core of the idea was just using a certain technology, using a certain platform. Where we're definitely seeing a lot of that with for example, NFTs. And I believe Kanye, or sorry, I think he's called Ye now, he goes by Ye, just posted an Instagram post about, like, stop asking me if I'm going to come out with NFTs. I want to do real stuff in the real world, which I kind of found funny. I guess for me, with things that are overrated is it's just about whether you're doing something for the sake of the stunt, or whether you're doing something because it really is aligned with your long-term brand strategy, whether it's really aligned with the goals that you have as a brand and as a company. And I think that's where you draw that line, right?
Yeah, there has to be consensus around, like, our why. Why are we here? Why are we marketing? And then, explorations, I think, is an important part of any marketing organization. Like, you have to kind of keep an eye on the future and ask, well, what's coming at us that could be a threat, but could be an opportunity. And so, part of the muscles of being a marketer is to be curious and to go and do research and check out and say, all right, NFTs, what are they? Why are they? What could they mean for our audiences? What could they mean for our teams? We have a very diverse supply chain. We have a very diverse set of audiences. Who knows, right? So it's in the act of exploring and learning that we might discover some relevance that on the surface might not be apparent. So I encourage us, I encourage myself, I encourage marketers that, you make time to learn, make time to, set aside your prejudices and look at these things strictly from the standpoint of, it's a utility. How might we benefit from it in the future?
And then in the spirit of learning, we are at the cusp of Super Bowl. The ads are starting to drop on various platforms, and ad week, and so I just wanted to ask you, are you watching Super Bowl for the game, or are you watching it for the ads? Because I know that I'm from Europe originally, so for me, football is soccer, and I understand very little about American football, but I get ads. And so for me, it's all about that. I feel like it's one of the most exciting weeks in marketing of the year.
It's a fantastic stage, right? I mean, to be in a situation where it's like, look, if you're making a Super Bowl ad, first off, you probably have a bigger budget than you've ever had, right? You have access to amazing talent. So hopefully you've got a wonderful strategy to work from, and you've got great creativity and great partners and great courage in the organization. It's a chance to dazzle. It's a chance for spectacle. Never mind it, the commercial or some kind of surrounding activation. So, I mean, we're marketers. I love the idea of the Super Bowl. I love engaging in it and viewing it from that perspective, because hopefully we're going to see amazing work. And we'll see. We will see. And then there's the game. And then there's the game itself.
Is there any brand in particular that you're on the watch out for, or does it vary every year? Any great hits that come to mind?
Honestly, I'm thrilled with the halftime show. The fact that you have Dr. Dre and Mary J. Blige and Kendrick and Eminem. I mean, and Snoop. The fact that the NFL went, all right, we're going to finally, after all these years, embrace hip hop in the center of that. That's going to be really interesting. Just from a cultural moment, I think that's going to be really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm really curious to see whether there is a Ryan Reynolds directed commercial in
Right.
Super Bowl. That's something that I'll personally be on the lookout for. And then, of course, I think somebody should make like a Super Bowl bingo. I mean, it's probably already being made, like with all the tropes that you can expect to see in the commercials. So yeah, I'm calling for Ryan Reynolds, and then NFT launch. Those are my two predictions. But pivoting into Q&A, we've got some questions here from the audience already, and please write yours in. We've got some time still to discuss with Tim. And so the first question here is, hi, Tim, thanks for presenting. So 2 questions. From your years of creative experience, is it very different working for a cooperative in terms of decision-making processes?
No. We report up to our CMO, Heather Malinchak. And so, she's the boss. And I think that the ownership structure behind all of that isn't really a factor. I think maybe what Kathleen might be wondering, like, I've worked on things like McDonald's where you end up presenting to this like board of franchisees. No, that's not what occurs here. So there's that answer. And our second question, I think the farmers co-op ownership, as well as your CEO, are such great stories, but not feeling that or seeing it in the market much. Oh, amen, right? So yes, we're owned by our farmers. You can absolutely bet we're working hard to get that message out there. And I think you'll be seeing a lot more of that in the near future. And our comms team would say, like, we are doing everything we possibly can to get Beth Ford out there in front of people. So yes, Kathleen, we know we've got some amazing assets, and we're absolutely working like crazy to leverage them as much as we can.
Yeah, I think like having that great message and story is only half the battle. The other half is actually getting it in front of people's eyes and making them remember that.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can try as hard as we can, and then we're competing with everything else. We're competing with Ryan Reynolds for your attention, right? So it's just hard. And I would say that, like, so that, our farmer message or Beth Ford as a CEO, those are getting pushed out there. But we live in a very sort of siloed society now. And so you might not see it because you're not in our targeting pool.
Absolutely. And so yes, but there is something in the works.
Yes.
Can you say so much? And
we have something in the works. And you'll see it, and it'll be awesome in the future. Coming soon.
How near future? When should we be paying special attention to your brand? Can you give us a launch timeline?
Before summer.
Before summer. All right, we'll be on the lookout there. Just out of curiosity, is your brand on TikTok?
We're exploring. I think that's it. We're in a learning phase. We're trying to understand if we were to invest time and treasure in that, how do we do it? It's a staffing thing as much as like cool platform, but like, okay, you need to have people doing it, right? So we're doing a lot of assessing and trying to figure out, in our spaces, who, there's some amazing farmers out there. Farm Talk is awesome. And there's some amazing farmers out there helping demystify, like, what's the day-to-day of running, a wheat farm, a potato farm, a sorghum farm, demystifying, like, what's it like to work with dairy cows every single day. So there's a lot for us to kind of get a sense of, how are people engaging with that type of content? And then it'll help us define our strategy and figure out how we're going to move ahead.
Yeah. So fun fact, my father-in-law actually is a farmer and owns a huge farm in Brazil cool. That comes from like a long line of farmers. So it's definitely a fascinating life. Going back to the TikTok, I think it's really interesting how things that you wouldn't think would go viral and become a thing and become their own niche on TikTok do that. And that's why I think one lesson for all of us marketers is that you don't have to have a certain type of brand to be successful on TikTok. Like if you think about Instagram, you need to be, maybe you're a fashion brand, maybe you're apparel, maybe you're something that relates closely to a lifestyle. But as you said, like having farm talk and having all these subgroups, so you never know what's going to pop off if the content is authentic and if it aligns well with the interests of that particular audience.
Yeah.